G'day everybody, and today I want to go through, an atheist that I kind of respect, Matt Dillahunty. I really think or feel that he really likes to get to the actual problem, and today I want him to, let's go through it.
The Atheist Debates Patreon project presents Contradictory Creation Accounts. Hey everybody, welcome. I get email for the Atheist Experience and for the Atheist Debates Project, and one email that comes in several times a year is from atheists asking me why I don't, in debates or on the show or as part of this project, talk about the fact that there are two different creation stories in the Bible and they're contradictory. And so today I thought I would go ahead and do exactly that, or at least answer the question as to why I don't do that very often. So let's take a look at Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, and let's see what's there that may be contradictory or problematic for theists.
So let's get into this. My name is Craig, and this is Morningstar Quest, where we are delving into the Bible one question at a time. And I guess this is number one question because we are right at verse 1.
So the disappointing thing for a lot of my atheist fans is that I don't really find that there's a problem between the Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 accounts, not in a way that is impressive.
So this is going to be a short one. But no, he goes on. Hang on, we'll let him talk.
Of all of the problems with the Bible and potential contradictions, and I've seen tons of, you can go find an image where there's just like lines drawn with all the supposed contradictions that are in the Bible, and I'm on record and will repeatedly point out there are not as many contradictions as atheists would like there to be and as some people would like to chart. The problem is when the language isn't particularly clear and how you're going to go about reading it and what mindset you're going to have. That's all important to this.
And it so is. And I'm going to unveil something to you today. If you've seen my videos, you probably already know where I'm going. But I want to show you something. I don't want to tell you. I want to show you how this works. And even though he's getting so close, and I mean he is getting so close, and I mean really close, but then he kind of misses a couple of points. But I really do respect Matt Dillahunty because he is doing due diligence and he's working through it, but he's kind of missing a couple of points.
And so when it comes to the two creation accounts, and I would say that there may or may not be two, depending on how you read this. First of all, there are a number of simple, common apologetic responses to dismiss the notion that there's any sort of contradiction here. And even if there weren't, it's not particularly impactful upon believers. For people who read the Bible or have talked to their preacher at all or heard a sermon about it, even if there were some things that weren't particularly on the same page, since they're a page apart, it doesn't really impact them at all. They're still convinced that a God created it and that maybe a scribal error is responsible or something. This is not a massive point of doctrine. And when you consider that there are Christians who both literally think Genesis is true and who figuratively think Genesis is true and that it's a metaphor for humanity's fall from grace, pointing out that there are differences between what appear to be a couple of different creation accounts does not have the effect that some people would like it to have.
I find this so interesting because everyone talks about that Genesis 1 is a big picture view and it's big in thought, and then chapter 2 drills down and we see Adam and Eve and it's more focused, if you like. And everybody says, the atheists say, that's definitely a contradiction because there are different orders, and it's not chronological, or if it is chronological, it's out of order. And then there's different names for God, like it uses Elohim to start with. And then it goes to Yahweh Elohim for chapter 2. And so I get what he's trying to say, that in some instances that it could be seen as two separate accounts shoved together, or it could be one and it is just a refocusing.
Then God saw everything that he'd made, and indeed it was very good. So was the evening and the morning of the sixth day. And then we get to chapter 2, and the first 3 verses of chapter 2 finish that story. As a matter of fact, I'm not completely sure, and I'm sure somebody out there could educate me rather quickly, why we even start chapter 2 where it starts instead of, at verse 4 where it probably should start.
This is a good question.
The first 3 verses of chapter 2 says, "Thus the heavens and the earth and all the hosts of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made." This is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created. In the day the Lord God made earth and heavens, before any plant of the field was in the earth, and before any herb of the field had grown. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. But a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Now, this is the first verse here, chapter 5, or verse 5 of chapter 2, that really starts to confuse people, because they just read a handful of verses before where God created man, male and female created he them. And now it's saying, hang on, there's no man to till the ground. What ends up happening is that the first account, which can be viewed as a general account, ends at the end of chapter 2, verse 3. And a second account begins at verse 4. And this is why it says, "This is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the heavens and the earth." It's extra confusing because it seems like we're talking about day 6, and sometimes it seems like we're talking about day 4.
And this is where it gets very interesting, because with the Bible, and you might be surprised with this, but it's not always chronological. Like 1 Kings, Chronicles, obviously Chronicles would be chronologically in order. And it is telling you that it's in chronological order. Like, this king reigned, this king died, and therefore his son took over, and this king then did these things. And then that king was killed, and this king took over, and these things happened. That is chronological. And with Matt Dillahunty, he tries to explain that there is this confusion, but it's not the confusion. And then he will go on and talk about how, like everybody says, the chronological order of Genesis 2 doesn't match with Genesis 1. And then it talks of, and then Matt Dillahunty says, well, you know what? That's not the problem. The problem is that Genesis 1, the chronological order, doesn't match with science's chronological order. And everybody is getting this wrong. And this is where Near Eastern poetry, or setting up a story, how this works. And I love this, because everything is about the center, not the beginning to the end. It's about the center, and how the center changes everything from the beginning, goes through the center to the end. And when it goes through the center, something changes. Everything changes. And this is how we have with any Near Eastern poetry or storytelling. And I love this kind of poetry because it says way more than what a chronological order of things would do. So we have this, we have the center point. Everything is about the center. And the opening idea, and interestingly enough, the B section here, related idea, it doesn't have to be chronologically in order. It doesn't have to be scientifically in order, because it's more about the spiritual side, the talking about the temple, or talking about God more. It's not talking about this happened and this happened and this happened. It's the bigger concepts. And when we get down to Genesis, creation of the world, then the Garden of Eden and the fall, we have Cain and Abel's story, and then we have genealogy of Adam and Noah, and then the flood begins. And right at the very center is God remembers Noah. That is the whole point of this story. well, maybe not the whole point of the story, but its center is the pivot. And everything before it and everything after it, it changes everything, including the names of God in the different sections. Everybody says, well, Moses probably shoved everything together, or a scribe found lots of these little notes over Moses' tent and went, you know what, I can shove all this together. Well, no, because it is one woven story. And I think when we get to another Near Eastern story was Gilgamesh. I don't know if you know the story, but it's like a king that goes on a journey. And the whole thing, you can see that it's a patchwork. It's like a patchwork quilt. It gets put together, but you can see the seams. You can see how messy it is. The A section and the B section, they do seem disjointed. But like Matt Dillahunty is saying, is that it's not evident here. He can't even, like, he's trying to put down, some contradictory roots to say, no, this is very different to each other. And even he's not going that far, because he's going, well, you know what? There's no seams here. It might be different order, but with Near Eastern poetry, chronological is not important. When it comes to time, well, I guess that's the same. But when it comes to this sort of thing, the most important thing is the meaning and the reason and what is changing. So really, it's all setting up everything so that when God remembers Noah, it changes in the middle, and then from there on, we can see what's happening. Now, you might notice a couple of things here. In the A and B section, there is a B and A section here. But what I want you to know is they do seem flipped, because the next part is about Abraham and his sacrifice with his son. And that goes through another chiasm. And then the story of Joseph in Egypt, that's another chiasm. These things, there's 3 of them across Genesis. They can't be a mistake. They are the center and they're the purpose. And it's trying to tell you something. And I love how there is this convention that is set up with the names of God. Like in the big picture, we've got Elohim. It's the priestly side of things in green. And then we've got the yellow where it's Yahweh Elohim. And when it comes to the covenant side of things, like God is signing a covenant with us, it's more personal again with Yahweh. And then there's the E sections here where it starts off with Elohim and goes to Yahweh, and then the other one flips and goes from Yahweh to Elohim. Now, in the center here, I don't know if you can really see it here. I mean, this is the perfect one to say, how we've got 7, 40, 150, 150 days, 40 days, 7 days, and then another day to kind of emphasize the Sabbath. But all of this is written with Elohim, even the center. Now, the center, Elohim, it should be the big picture God. But then which it is, and it should be talking about big picture stuff. But God, Elohim, the big picture God, remembers personally Noah, because that is amazing. The big picture God that's out there that we can't touch remembers personally Noah. And this is where everything pivots and changes, and why Matt Dillahunty gets confused, even though he's so close. He's so close. And he says there, Genesis 2 is in the wrong order for Genesis 1. But he says that's not the problem. Genesis 1 is in the wrong order for science. And it's like, well, science isn't the problem. Chronological isn't the problem. It's more about the heart of the matter. And what is the heart? And it's what God is doing for us and how we are trying to destroy everything and God keeps fixing it. And this is why we keep having contradictions, is because people keep misunderstanding the Bible every single time. And I want you to go there, visit that, because I'm going through more of these contradictions and I am loving this, and there is a heart to everything, and everything has a heart. Oh, that's a chiasm in itself. Go do something awesome for God, and I'll catch you in the next one.